Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready. Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
That is a wonderful introduction. I love the Wook. You know, the Wook watched that whole thing with the maximum curiosity. For those who are watching our program, we have Kevin here, our co-host on the vlog on the vlog. You'll see that we're in a slightly different setup here in our Ocean studio. Been working on this for the last couple of hours. Our goal was to find a corner of the Ocean studio where we could have all of our expensive gear. We probably have $30,000 worth of gear here or more. And we wanted to see if we could put it inside. We have a room here that has a sliding glass wall. So we got it all inside other than, you know, me, and I'm pretty drip dry. So we have one bank of lights and me and the microphone and the Wook that are outside. Wook went for a swim today, so he's drip dry too. So that was the first thing. So the hour that it takes normally to an hour and a half for us to set up the Ocean studio and then to cover it back up and protect it, we think we have taken now down to less than 5 minutes. So we can do this more regularly.
Of the efficiency, yes.
That was that part of it. And the other part of it was to eliminate the afternoon burnout on the sun now that it's north of our horizon during the afternoon. I think we've done both of those two. All right, so that's the answer on the new studio. What you see there is a timer because we have decided that we're going to try to do a couple of things that I've not been very good at. Rich thinks he's going to be great at it and has asked for it. And Kevin, you're saying that you want it, but you're betting against it. And those two things are to be corralled into a regular schedule so that I can be counted on at 11 o'clock Atlantic time, which is Eastern time, to be sitting in this chair ready to go for a blog on the blog. And that we'll do one 5 days a week at this time. And it'll be a 30 to a 40-minute show. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing is that it'll be a 30 to a 40-minute show and that I can actually be constrained to that amount of time. Is that all true there, Kevin?
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah. Wookie's going to help.
Okay, Wookie's going to help. All right, so that is the plan. The other part of the plan is like the syndicated show I did on talk radio a long time ago on the Genesis communication network called Shattering Myths. It was a show where I did 3 one-hour segments 5 days a week. And one of those segments was always on the Towrah. One was on the news and one was on just whatever was of interest that particular day. And we had a lot of interaction with callers in that third segment. So in this format, we're going to do 15 to 20 minutes related to Towrah events and Towrah discussion. The other will be on the news. And they don't have to be balanced every day. We do have a timer there, so you can actually see how we're doing on this process. And I've eaten up 3 minutes now with the introduction, which should not be counted against me on the
I have to reset the timer?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Now, also, if you noticed that on the last blog on the blog, we had Roger Bankston with us. We loved Roger Bankston being part of us. Roger will be invited back regularly. Our intent is to do a rotating co-host. And so there are 3 or 4 other people that have volunteered that are interested in doing this. But we will have Roger routinely in this role. He was great. We love Roger. But I think giving other people an opportunity to express themselves and for the Covenant family and those just watching us, learning from us, I think they should have the opportunity to see more voices, just as we have expanded Family Hour. Mm-hmm. So that is the plan. And there's one other aspect of it, since we go to all the trouble to set up the studio. Rich thinks it'll be a grand idea, and I agree with him, that 5 minutes after we conclude this program, I will do a vlog program. This will be a continuation of our basics program on luminaries, and we'll just go right one from another setup time is reduced. And on a normal day when we're doing this at the times that we have designated, then we will then do a sunset show perhaps from the studio. So that's the plan.
Nice.
All right, so I'm going to give you first dibs there, Kevin.
Okay.
You get a chance to talk about, introduce at least, what is, you think, one of the more interesting subjects, Towrah related, of the last few weeks.
Well, I think the discussion that Perry and I were having on Perry's concept of the Neshamah, and it's a topic on the Yada Yah chat room, and the premise was that people losing their Neshamah or not using their Neshamah correctly, and my point was that there are actually people walking among us today that never had a Neshamah because they come down. A Neshamah comes from Adam and Chawah. It's why the daughters of Adam were so beautiful, as the translation we know, but desirable to those outside of the garden, because they had neshamas, and they had progeny with neshamas. And so I think that that premise that we know that everybody has a soul and a pesh, right? But it's just offensive for some reason for people to think that there's people that walk among us today, population groups, that never had a neshama.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. First, a Neshamah is different than a Nephesh soul. Wookiee has decided that he has the whole desk now to roll him around in, since we moved so many things off of it. But there you go. I can now see you again. Most people have no idea what a Neshamah is. In fact, I think if you were to poll 1,000 people, we'd be lucky if 1 in 1,000 people, and it may be as few as 1 in a million people. I think that's probably a closer number. 1 in a million people know what a Neshamah is. And that leads to confusion, because those who want to attack the Towrah will say that Adam could not have been the first man 6,000 years ago. And it's true. He's not the first man. And the Towrah is very clear that he was not the first human. He was the first human conceived in Yahowah's image. And to be conceived in Yahowah's image, he had to be given, in addition to an animal soul. And God's very clear, all animals have souls. A soul is a nephesh. A soul gives you consciousness, the ability to observe your environment and respond to it. It's the thing that distinguishes between plants and animals. A plant cannot respond to the environment, doesn't really observe it, but an animal can observe what's happening around them and can respond to it. That is a nephesh. All animals have a nephesh. Humans are animals. We have a nephesh. But to make one man in his image, his firstborn, Adam, he gave Adam from himself a Neshamah. A Neshamah is a conscience. Now, conscience and consciousness are very different things. And a conscience is that ability to calibrate what you have seen, what you have heard, what you have read, so that you can deduce right and wrong, good and bad, productive and counterproductive. So that literally the difference between right and wrong. And so the question is, in today's Generation Z, with so few people thinking, and even those who are getting a Ivy League education
yes,
are particularly inept. They are grossly immoral. They are incapable of actually reasoning, of using evidence and reason and coming to an intelligent decision. They're indoctrinated into Marxism and to the ideals of progressive Marxism, and they're just really lost beyond that. So the question then becomes also, as you look at people who are overtly religious or very conspiratorial, they aren't thinking. And it's as if their ability to think has been rendered moot. So they're essentially incapable of thinking. So then the question becomes, since that is the difference between man created in God's image and all other people, do all humans actually have a conscience, a Neshamah, or is it the factor of that most or all do, but it has been rendered inept through religious and political indoctrination such that it's no longer capable of functioning. And when I look at humanity now, it is so different than what I experienced when I was younger. Ability to debate, to reason, to make sound judgments. It's dissipated in our society. So this then puts us in an interesting query. One person was given a Neshamah by Yahowah, and that was Adam, the first man. He is actually Yahowah's firstborn. It's Dod's soul. That's another interesting topic for another show. And when Chawah was created for Adam, she was given that same Neshamah. We're not told that was the case, but it's obviously deduced from the presentation that Yahowah has provided. And then mankind turned really nasty. We have what God refers to as the Nephilim. They're not giants. They're the opposite of that. They're fallen. They're minuscule men that turn to violence and subjugation, oppression, that sort of thing. And they are actually called Hamas by Yahowah. Hamas would mean that they are terrorists. They were terrorizing one another. So the Neshamah man experiment that Yahowah had begun for the purpose of finding a companion that was more like a son or daughter that he could trust, released from this planet in 3 dimensions with physical bodies, and released from the restraint of a physical body so that their soul and their Neshamah could explore the universe with him and go into the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th dimension. He had to be certain that we were capable of listening to him, thinking about what he said, responding appropriately, engaging such that we made a contribution to the relationship, and that we could be trusted. If we made a mistake, we would correct it. We would learn from it, and that we would never double down on a mistake by lying about it. And Adam failed that test miserably, but God didn't give up on him. He still loved him. So he moved him out of the garden so he could have some real world experiences, just like you have if you got a son, let's call it a deadbeat son, that just doesn't want to engage, doesn't want to work, doesn't want to make a contribution to the family, doesn't want to do anything all day, won't even do their chores. Eventually you can't continue to cause an environment where that child is so sheltered that they don't ever develop any grit, any backbone, any self-confidence, any personal responsibilities. You have to move them out of the house, and for them to fail and get back up. You still love them, but that's what you have to do. That was the case with Adam. But collective man became horrible. It's one of the things that I think I'm unique in saying, and that it is profoundly important, and it's affirmed multiple times by Yahowah, and including in Bereshit Genesis 6, that the more men there are, and men and women, the worse we become. Individually, we have the potential to be good or bad. Collectively, we're always bad. And the more of us there are, the worse we become. So it became so bad that God grieved to the point he says, I wish I hadn't even created Neshamah man. And this became, I think, the one of 3 of the most important moments in the entire human experience. There were 3 points in the human experience where it's give or take. It's one yes or no. We as a species are going to be allowed to continue, or it is over for us. And this was one of those moments. And so what did God do to resolve? And it goes right back into who has a Neshamah and who doesn't. What did God do to resolve the fallen state of humankind?
He put everybody that he could work with a Neshamah in a safe place, and he cleared off the Eretz, the region of everybody else, killed the Nephilim.
Yeah. So what happened here? Right. What happened here is everybody with a Neshamah was gathered around Lake Van, the Black Sea, Caspian Sea area. They hadn't gone very far from that area. There were humans everywhere on Earth at that time, but humans with a Neshamah were in that area. And what God did is he chose a man, and that man's wife and his 3 sons and their wives, to give instructions to see if in fact the human experience was possible. Could he give instructions to someone who would respond differently than Adam did in the garden? Could he offer really challenging instructions? I want you in the middle of this mountainous region to build a giant boat.
Right.
It's going to take you years and years and years to do so. I'll give you the instructions. I'll give you the blueprint, but I want you to build this thing. And then I want you to save animals that are native to this region. And we're going to wipe out Neshamah man and start over again. It's one of the great stories. Maybe we'll do another blog on how that flood actually transpired. But it's my contention, and I think this is the most interesting story there is. And although we're down to 0, I do get an extra 5 minutes here because we did a 5-minute introduction. But what God did is he chose somebody that he thought could actually do what needed to be done. Listen to him, think about it, respond appropriately, and demonstrate that they could see it through. And if it was not for Noach, who I'm positive God did not just find somebody out there in the boonies that he says, yeah, the people that are in the city, they're all Hamas, they're all Nephilim, they're terrible. I'm just going to get lucky. There's this one guy that's not in the city, and I'm going to choose he and his family. I don't think there's a chance, one chance in a billion on that. That man was Chinook, the man that God said, I'm impressed with him. I'm taking him. Well, he did. He took him and he redeployed him.
The guy's name that means prepared and deployable. Yeah, I probably picked him.
that's the guy, and he has a wife that has played major roles going through history. And their first son, that was Adam's second chance to get it right, to listen to God. See what happens if you actually listen to God. He had it demonstrated before him. Listen to God and do what he says, and see how it works out. And what did it work out? It worked out into a covenant relationship, and Neshamah man was saved, and all humans that have a Neshamah have to be descended from those individuals, but that does not mean all humans have a Neshamah. There were lots and lots of humans on the planet that did not have a Neshamah, and if they intermarry, you get a non-Neshamah kid. Humans that are essentially animals, which is not a derogatory term. And so I think it's a faction of two things. I do think there are many non-Neshamah equipped humans. And second, I think the very things that cause God to come within an eyelash of ending the entire human experience during the time of Noach is that they had become religious, they'd become political, conspiratorial, deadly, violent, subjugating tyrants. And they were, like all religious and political regimes, they were abusive to women. Torah text is really clear. They were religious, they were abusive to women, they were violent. And when those things become predominant in a society, and they are in most societies around the earth, then what happens as a result of them is that the human experience is essentially negated, and the person has crippled their Neshamah, their conscience. They can no longer think their way to God, which is as God wants it to be. God realized that large concentrations of men are always bad. He's not looking for a lot of us in Shamaim. He's looking for a filter system. You got to understand the point that you just raised. You have to understand the difference in a Nephesh soul, a Neshamah conscience, and how to use them collectively to think your way to God based upon the evidence he has provided. It makes this a fascinating subject.
Absolutely. And at the very least, don't preclude others from finding Yahowah. That puts you in Sheol. As soon as you start promoting non-religious, political, these ideas, and you are actively preventing other people from finding Yahowah, that puts you in Sheol.
Yes.
That's
if you're promoting Christianity or Islam or Judaism or Marxism, then you are promoting doctrines as a promoter that will put your soul in Sheol, which is eternal carceration. That is correct. And so you don't want to do that. If you're the victim of Christianity, you believe the lie. You are a victim of Islam, you believe the lie. You're a victim of Judaism, you believe those lies. If you're a victim of Marxism, because you can't think anymore, you've been indoctrinated, and you believe that collective man is better than individual man. If you are a victim of those belief systems because you could not think your way out of them, then your soul simply dissipates into nothingness at the end of your life. It goes away as if it never existed. And if you promote those things, your soul gets incarcerated in Sheol as a consequence of leading people away from the truth. And on another one of these, I'd like to go right back to this topic and then talk about the two other crucial points in human history where the entire human experience was survived or failed on the actions of a single individual or a couple in this case, what those were, and if those people have anything in common with Noach and his wife, and maybe Shem, and we'll see.
That's a good teaser. That's a good teaser.
All right, so we've gone 20 seconds over our time with our interlude. Let's go to a news topic. Thank you. It's a great topic to discuss, and I think we can do this in less than 15 minutes. By studying the prophets, I was the first to recognize that Donald Trump is Satan. He's Satan incarnate. He is who the prophets call Rahab, and Christians know this individual as the Antichrist. And we were able to examine everything that Gabriel, who is Dode, had to say through Daniel, and everything that is registered in Yeshaya and Yoel throughout the prophets and the Mizmor about this individual, when he would arrive, what he would do. And he is the great betrayer of Israel, the great betrayer of mankind, the great betrayer of Israel. He is literally Satan incarnate. He is going to be worse than all of the villains of human history prior to him. This man will cause more carnage than Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, Tamerlane, Hadrian, Titus, you name it. This is the worst human being that will have ever lived. And these people trying to kill him can't be done. He's impervious to death, which is why he will be incarcerated forever in Sheol, hell. It's a black hole. So if you're trying to assassinate him, don't bother. He is impervious to that. He will finally meet his doom when he leaves Washington, D.C. in January of 2030, and he goes to Jerusalem. And on the Ides of March in 2030, he's going to finally remove all doubt on his status, where he is going to announce that he is more than the leader of the world, that he is God. And he is going to...
comes off.
Yeah, the mask comes off. And at that time, well, within less than a month of that time, on April 18th of 2030, the two witnesses arrive to oppose him. And it will be a showdown of great interest to the world as these two people, and they're going to do a lot more than just condemn this POS that is Donald Trump. Now,
3 years of that, so that's a long time camping on the temple on Mount Moriah. So
yeah, almost 3.5 years of time for the two of us. It's going to be extraordinary service. It's vitally important to God that we accomplish this mission. We will do so, but that's the future, and ultimately it's on Towrah, which is the 24th of September of 2033, that he finally gets his comeuppance. And it's really interesting is how this happens. Yeah. He kills one too many people, and he picks on the wrong guy. You know how Elia 2,888 years ago, to almost the day that this happened, that this will happen, he told his pal to bring in Rahab, and they had that face to face. I wanted the direct confrontation with him, and I said, "No, you're the great troubler of Israel." I'm protected, and I will be continued to be protected because I speak for Yahowah, and Yahowah has to protect those who speak for him. But on this day, I let all of my protection down, and I walk up to this POS, and I said, it was Satan. I mean, he is and his minions. And I said, do what you're going to do. Do it. And their attack on me is going to be so sadistic and so vicious, filled with such revenge and vitriol, that it's going to shock the world. And Yahweh is using that death as the sacrifice of the Adam of Chawah, to then, as a burnt offering, it'll be to purge the mortal remnant of Israel on this day, 10 days before Dod and Yahweh return. It's an extraordinary part of prophecy. If you don't know it, then you don't know God, and it's not going to bother you anyway because you're not going to be there. You won't live long enough to get to this point. But I would strongly encourage you to do that. And I think, Kevin, it's important that it's 18 months ago that I didn't just announce that Donald Trump was the person Christians know as the Antichrist. He is the Torahless one. He is the great betrayer of Israel. And the technical term is he is Rahab. But I proved it. I went through it was the first really to completely unveil Daniel and tie it with the prophecies in Yoel and Yeshaya, Isaiah, particularly the 17th and 18th verse. And I said, this is what he's going to do. This is who he is. And this is where he's going to do it from. And this is going to be the result. And I laid it all on the line. There's a series now called Antichrist on our vlog pages, probably 25 programs long in that range. So it's worth the listen. But we identified him. It's essential to our time that you know exactly who he is and have an appreciation of what he's going to do now that we're less than 3 weeks from the time of beginning of Israel's trouble. This is the main player in the world today and will be for the next 7 years.
Yeah. The series at Towrah is the one where the unveiling of or the unsealing of the book of Daniel and also taking through Yoel is the Antichrist series is based on. So if those of you that can read and would like to read, I would strongly recommend at Towrah. It's the 9th volume of Yahowah, I believe. It's just fascinating that the headline, Republicans privately panicking about Trump's revenge crusade. Okay. They're not actively doing anything about it. There's no one in the Senate that's saying on the Republican side, because they're politicians and it's all about power, power, power. Not that they can do anything, physically remove him.
It's also about fear.
Well,
they're afraid of Donald Trump, and they should be afraid of him. He's vicious. No one comes after Donald Trump that isn't torn to ribbons. He is the Hannibal Lecter of politics. That's the most vicious human being that's ever lived.
Yeah, he's taken a second swipe at Comey. I believe that there's going to be charges filed against Comey
for seashells. For seashells, he put in seashells 8647, and for that, I mean, that is so. There is nobody that could do anything like that, shy of Satan, that would stoop to that level of vengeance and revenge.
Yeah, I saw the press conference the other day of him explaining what 86 means to people and about how it's a mob hit and and it's an old mob term or whatever. I don't think so. I think it comes from diners. It's remove it from the menu. We sold out of the special, and so 86 it from the menu is where the slang came from. Remove it from the menu. And
is that actually where? Oh, so you actually did the a look at, I haven't done that. I thought that would be clever. I always just thought 86 means remove it is what I thought. So you're removed. So what he was saying is impeach and convict Donald Trump, which is 8647. It's which would be it's an appropriate response to him. Politicians are too afraid of him to do that. But I've heard he has been 86'd. Now, when I've heard that, I didn't think that that meant he had been killed. I always thought he's been 86 means that whatever position of authority or power or influence
Right.
somebody had, that problem has been taken care of. They're no longer in that position.
Right. Yeah,
But
exactly. But for him to, I mean, he spent 5 minutes blathering away about mob hits and they're not good guys and about the term 86 in the White House, explaining himself about how, Comey should definitely be prosecuted for this. And wow, just absolutely
imagine the
unbelievable.
grand jury? I don't think the grand jury that decided to indict him on this, the 24 people in that grand jury, or whatever number it was, would have had a collective IQ of 100. I mean, talk about a Neshamah free zone. That would have been a Neshamah free. If somebody said, excuse me, the man wrote in Seashells 8647, and you want us to prosecute, you're going to waste the courts and judges' time for this? Are you out of your ever-loving mind? What in the hell is wrong with you? Hell no.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single person in there with character that could have said that. By the way, I'm not a Comey fan. And the interesting thing about when we besmirch Donald Trump tearing his character to ribbons, it's because we're moral, because we're judgmental, because we've read the prophets, we know who he is. I am way too conservative to be a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So I am certainly not a Marxist. So when I'm confronted with, well, the other side is, can you imagine if we had Kamala Harris as president? Well, that would have been horrifying to have Cackles as president. Marxists are dumb. Marxism is a completely failed doctrine, and it's counter to what Yahowah asks us for. That's collectivization of human relationships, and that makes them worse. It destroys incentive. It pulls people away from personal responsibility. There is no rational moral code that is part of it. Marxism is a completely failed economic system. And so, no, we are not Marxists. We are not progressives. We're not woke. And I probably can speak for you. We're too conservative, too in favor of free enterprise, too in favor of personal responsibility, of smaller government, and of more opportunity for individuals than you can be and still be a Republican. I can't stomach Republicans because they are not in favor of any of those things. And so, no, we're not. We're not Republicans. Well, because God tells us not to be political, but also because the Republicans are way too wacko, too religious, and too political for our taste. But you can't get any worse than that man right there. That's as bad as it gets. And
Marxism with it's still theft. Yahowah is against theft, right? And yes. So Marx, even if it's the government doing it, it is still theft. Right. So that makes it okay. Yeah.
No. Then we are going to be doing 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week on politics, not because we're political, but because it's impossible for somebody to become part of the covenant family, which is what we advocate, while you are political. You must walk away from what God called Babel. And Babel was this commingling and intermixing of religion and politics. He won't tolerate either, and he is more antagonist towards the integration of them than he is either one of them individually. So long as you are religious and political, of what that man is both, then you can't be part of the covenant. And if you're going to speak for Yahowah, you have to speak against politics and religion, and you have to spend as much time speaking against politics and religion as you do in favor of the Towrah, the covenant, Yahowah's name, his beloved son, and these sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So that is where we are. I don't know. Did you actually reset our timer? Are we actually 2 minutes shy of 30 minutes?
I've reset it. Okay. Absolutely.
We're okay.
Given you and your introduction time. So yeah, we've been on the air
I'm delighted that you did. Minutes. I hope that this works. We're going to get by the way, a camera so that when I'm looking at you and this screen, I'm not cockeyed because the only camera we have right now that's working in this particular studio is the one that's behind the teleprompter, and it's it's way behind us here, but we'll get another camera here. What we want to see is, does it work? Can we make the lighting work with the background? It's really hard to expose a person's face in a open light environment where you have bright sky and ocean behind them. The dynamics of that is an exceedingly hard thing to do. So we want to see, first of all, is it even possible for us to do that? And then second, could we get a new setup in our studio that still showed and shared the ocean background, but was more conducive to being able to open it up in 5 minutes and let's go, and we'll do a show from here, and it protected our gear. And then we wanted to see with Kevin here, can we actually do this show?
Can we get it done? Yeah.
We do it?
I want to say real quick, I need you to have like a tennis ball or a chew toy or something in your hand, okay, and throw it over your back shoulder, because the camera shot right now is so perfect with the lighting and your hat on it that it's so crisp that your background looks fake. It looks like I could put any background I wanted behind you. It looks that good. So if you had like a tennis ball, I could just throw it over your shoulder that people could see.
Here we are, folks. No, it's as real as it gets. That is
right.
That's the rail. It's about a 30-foot fall directly off of that rail. We're sitting up on a patio that's a covered patio that I built at the far end of our home. It was to be kind of a private office, beautiful. We called it the Sky Office because of all of these beautiful sliding glass doors with blue glass, and it just to capture the beauty of the ocean and these islands. And we've, at Yahowah's request, we've turned my home into a studio for the Yahowah blog. But oh yes, it's absolutely real. That's why you see those palms moving in the background, and you see the light changing, and we'll get the there we go. Now you can see here we are.
Right.
That is the moving cam. We wanted to see if that was even possible to get operating here, if it was too close. But no, that seems to work, doesn't it? That is that camera right up there that's moving. And you can see we have a really beautiful set here. Oh, yeah, they're raising it up. I guess we're on borrowed time here, but what the heck? We're sharing our view. And so when God asked us to do this, the answer was, first of all, we always say yes. It's we don't stop negotiating.
It's just easier. Okay. It's just easier.
That's yes. But the idea is so we have this beautiful place to live. We've actually built this beautiful place to live. Now that's my hobby, and everybody deserves to have a hobby. Restoring homes is my hobby. And we're just sharing it with the world and with the Covenant family. And what a lovely place there is to broadcast. And we're lucky to have you remotely here, and Rich absolutely here to be able to bring it to you. So from our home to your home, and God set us up as the man from the sea to the land. Here we are for you.
Nice.
Well, thank you. That's our first official ocean studio vlog on the blog. And we'll do this starting Monday for an hour at 11 o'clock Eastern time, 11 o'clock Atlantic time, and try to do it, keep it pretty much routinely to 30 to 40 minutes. Thank you, Kevin. We'll do a formal vlog on luminaries here starting in about 15 minutes from now. Thank you for listening.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch Yao on our next podcast.